He had exactly $4.37 to his name when he watched a woman's heart break in real time. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She just sat there, frozen, as her blind date walked out the door, leaving her alone with the truth she'd finally been brave enough to tell. Her son was dying, and apparently that made her unlovable. Ethan Cole should have minded his own business. He should have caught his bus, gone home to his daughter, and forgotten the whole thing by morning. Instead, he spent his last emergency cash on a stranger's dinner. That single decision would change everything. If you want to see how one broken Valentine's Day night led to the most unexpected love story, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The fluorescent lights of the Starlight Diner hummed with the particular frequency of loneliness that only cheap diners possess after 10 o'clock on a weeknight. The kind of sound that gets into your bones if you sit still long enough. The kind that reminds you that you're one of the forgotten ones. The people who eat alone, who wait for buses that run every 45 minutes, who count coins instead of dollars. Ethan Cole had been counting coins for 3 years now. He sat in a cracked vinyl booth near the window, his reflection staring back at him like a ghost he'd stopped trying to outrun. 34 years old, calloused hands from construction work, dark circles under hazel eyes that used to laugh more than they did now. A wedding ring he still wore, even though the woman who'd placed it there had been gone for almost 4 years. 4 years this March. He pulled his phone from his jacket pocket and checked the time. The bus wouldn't arrive for another 22 minutes. His daughter Emma was safe at home with Mrs. Delgado from next door, the 73-year-old widow who refused payment but always accepted the cookies Emma insisted on baking for her. Chocolate chip, every single time. More coffee? Ethan looked up at the waitress, mid-50s, tired eyes, a name tag that read Gloria in faded letters. She held a pot of coffee that looked like it had been sitting on the burner since the Clinton administration. "I'm okay. Thank you." Gloria nodded, not pushing. She'd seen enough men like Ethan in her decades behind this counter. Men who nursed one cup of coffee for an hour because it was the cheapest thing on the menu. Men who were trying to hold something together that kept threatening to fall apart. She moved on to the next table. Ethan wrapped his hands around the lukewarm mug and let his gaze drift across the diner. A couple of truckers at the counter, a teenager with earbuds in, probably waiting for someone who was running late. And in the booth directly behind him, a woman. He'd noticed her when he walked in. Hard not to. She was dressed like she was expecting something good to happen tonight. A deep burgundy dress that probably cost more than his weekly grocery budget. Hair carefully curled. Makeup applied with the kind of precision that spoke of YouTube tutorials and nervous anticipation. She looked like she belonged in a restaurant with cloth napkins and wine lists, not a 24-hour diner with sticky menus and coffee that could double as paint thinner. Across from her sat a man who looked exactly like the type who would take a woman to a place like this on Valentine's Day. Not because he couldn't afford better, but because he'd already decided she wasn't worth the effort. Ethan turned back to his coffee, minding his own business. He had enough problems without borrowing someone else's. But the diner was quiet, and sounds carried. "I just think you should have mentioned it sooner," the man was saying. His voice had that particular edge of someone building toward an exit. Like in your profile or something. "I didn't think—" The woman's voice was softer, careful, like she was walking through a minefield she'd navigated before. "I didn't think it was first date conversation. I wanted you to meet me first, just me." "Yeah, but this is kind of a big deal, Lena. A kid, and you said he's really sick." "He is." "How sick?" A pause. Ethan watched his reflection in the window, but he wasn't seeing himself anymore. He was seeing another hospital room 3 years ago, another conversation that ended in words he never wanted to hear again. "Terminal," the woman, Lena, said quietly. "They don't know exactly how long. Months. Maybe a year if we're lucky." Silence. The kind of silence that says everything words refuse to. "Look," the man said, and Ethan could hear him already standing. "I'm really sorry you're going through that." "I am, but I just got out of a really intense relationship, and I'm not looking for anything heavy, you know? I thought this would be fun. Easy." "Easy," Lena repeated. The word came out hollow. Yeah, and this is a lot. My son dying is a lot. I didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? The man sighed, the sigh of someone who had already checked out of the conversation and was now just going through the motions of leaving. I'm sorry, Lena. I really am. I hope everything works out for you. I do. Ethan heard footsteps. The bell over the door chimed once, that cheap, cheerful sound that felt obscene in the moment. And then the footsteps faded into the February night, leaving behind nothing but cold air and broken silence. He didn't turn around. He wanted to. Some part of him that still remembered how to be human wanted to turn around and say something, anything, to fill the void that man had left behind. But what do you say to a woman whose child is dying, whose date just walked out, whose entire evening had been carefully constructed around the hope that maybe, just maybe, someone would see her as more than her tragedy? What words exist for that? So he sat there, hands wrapped around cold coffee, listening to the sound of a woman trying very hard not to cry in public. It lasted about 30 seconds. Then he heard her sob, just once, quickly stifled, and something inside him broke. Ethan stood up before he could talk himself out of it. He grabbed his coffee mug, still had about an inch of liquid left, might as well not waste it, and walked the 3 steps to her booth. Mind if I sit down? Lena looked up at him with startled eyes, green, he noticed, the color of spring leaves after rain, that were red-rimmed and suspicious. Her hands were pressed flat against the table like she was trying to hold herself in place. I'm sorry? I'm not trying to... He stopped, realizing how this must look. Strange man approaching crying woman in a late-night diner. Not exactly a hallmark moment. I was sitting right there. I heard everything, and I just thought maybe you shouldn't have to sit alone right now. You heard everything. These booths aren't exactly soundproof. She let out a sound that might have been a laugh in another timeline. No, I guess they're not. Look, I can leave you alone. That's probably what you want. But my bus doesn't come for another... He checked his phone. 18 minutes, and I make a pretty good wallflower if you just need someone to sit across from you so you don't feel like the whole diner is staring. Lena glanced around. Gloria was pretending to wipe down the counter. The truckers were very focused on their pie. The teenager hadn't looked up from her phone. They're not staring, she said. They will be if you're still crying in 5 minutes. People get uncomfortable. He shrugged. I don't. Get uncomfortable, I mean. With crying, my daughter's 7. I've seen some stuff. Another almost laugh. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture that smeared her careful makeup and somehow made her look more real. Your daughter. Emma. She's home with a neighbor who makes her feel like royalty. I was just coming back from a job site, second shift. He gestured to his worn jeans, the construction dust he hadn't quite managed to shake off. Hence the fancy attire. You look like you've been working. That's the nicest way anyone's ever said I look like hell. This time, she did laugh. Small, fragile, but real. Sit down, she said. Please. He slid into the booth across from her, setting his mostly empty mug on the table between them. For a long moment, neither of them said anything. The diner hummed its lonely frequency. Outside a Passat, a car passed on the wet street, headlights sweeping across the window like a slow-motion strobe. His name is Noah, Lena said suddenly. My son. He's 5. Noah. Good name. He picked it himself, actually. Not really. I mean, I named him when he was born, but when he was 3, he decided his name was boring and wanted to be called Captain. We compromised on letting him be Captain Noah on weekends. Sounds like a born negotiator. He is. Her voice cracked on the present tense, like she was already practicing for when it would have to become past tense. He really is. Ethan didn't ask what was wrong with Noah. He'd learned that particular lesson the hard way. How much it costs to answer that question, how many times you have to relive it in the telling. Instead, he said, I lost my wife. 3 years ago next month. Lena looked at him, really looked, like she was seeing something beneath his construction dust and tired eyes that she recognized. I'm so sorry. Her name was Sarah. She was 8 months pregnant with our second. He stopped, took a breath. Even now, the words felt like swallowing glass. Something went wrong. Preeclampsia. We didn't know until it was too late. Lost them both in the same night. The silence that followed was different from before. This was the silence of two people who understood that some losses don't have silver linings. Some grief doesn't teach you lessons or make you stronger. Some pain just hurts forever, and the best you can do is learn to carry it. How? Lena whispered. How do you keep going? Emma. The answer came immediately, because it was the only answer. I keep going because she needs me to, because every morning she wakes up and looks at me like I'm the whole world, and I can't. His voice roughened. I can't let her down, even when I want to stop, even when I'm so tired I can barely stand up. She needs me, so I keep going. And does it ever stop hurting? No. He held her gaze, refusing to lie to her. But you get better at carrying it. The weight doesn't change. You just get stronger. Lena's eyes filled with tears again, but she didn't look away. I'm so scared, she admitted. Not of losing him. I mean, yes, of course, but that fear it's already happened. It's been happening for 2 years. What I'm scared of is after. Who am I if I'm not his mother? What do I do with all this love when he's not here to receive it? You find other places to put it, other people who need it. That sounds like something a therapist would say. That's what my therapist told me. She was right, eventually. Took me about a year to admit it. You're in therapy? Every other Tuesday, court mandated after the divorce. Wait, no, sorry, that's my cover story. The corner of his mouth quirked up. The truth is I couldn't afford it for a long time, and then my union started offering free counseling, and I figured I'd be an idiot not to take advantage. Is it helping? Yeah, I mean, I'm sitting in a diner at 10:30 on Valentine's Day with $4 to my name, about to miss my bus, and have to wait another 45 minutes in the cold. So clearly my life is a stunning success. He spread his hands. But I can talk about Sarah now without feeling like my chest is caving in. That's something. That's a lot, actually. Some days. They lapsed into silence again, but this time it felt different, less like loneliness and more like companionship. Like they'd found each other on the same deserted island, and even if they didn't know what to do next, at least they weren't alone anymore. Gloria approached, coffee pot in hand. This time she didn't ask, just filled Ethan's mug and raised an eyebrow at Lena, who shook her head. Kitchen's closing in 20, Gloria said. Just FYI. Thanks. Ethan wrapped his hands around the fresh warmth. Any chance I could get... He stopped, remembering his bank balance. Actually, never mind. Get what? Nothing. I was going to ask about the pie, but I should save the... He cut himself off. This was a stranger, a woman he'd met 15 minutes ago. She didn't need to hear about his financial problems, but Lena was looking at him with those spring rain eyes, and he found himself finishing the sentence anyway. I should save my last few dollars in case Emma needs something. It's stupid. She's fine. Mrs. Delgado has everything covered, but I like having emergency cash on hand. In case. In case of what? That's the thing about emergencies. You never know. Lena stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached for her purse. Expensive leather, he noticed. The kind that spoke of a life that looked very different from the woman currently sitting across from him in a budget diner. Let me buy you dinner. What? No. I didn't. I know you didn't. That's why I'm offering. She pulled out a credit card. I was going to order for both of us anyway. My date paid when he arrived, thought he was being a gentleman, left enough for 2 meals before he... She gestured vaguely toward the door. Before he remembered he had better places to be. You don't have to do that. I know I don't have to. I want to. Her jaw set in a way that suggested she didn't make a habit of backing down. You're the first person who's treated me like a human being in... She stopped, corrected herself. In a while. The first person outside the hospital who's actually sat with me and talked to me like I'm not just a tragedy in heels. Let me buy you some pie. Ethan hesitated. Pride was a funny thing. It could make you strong when you needed to be. It could also make you stupid when what you needed was a hot meal and a little kindness. What kind of pie? He asked finally. I don't know. What kind of pie does a place like this have? Apple, probably. Maybe cherry if it's a good night. Then let's get one of each and split them. That's. He did the math in his head. Pie was about $4 a slice here. 2 slices meant $8, plus whatever meals she was already planning to order. That was real money. The kind he'd be worrying about for the next week if it came out of his pocket. That's a lot of pie. It's Valentine's Day, Lena said, with a ghost of a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I was planning to drown my sorrows in sugar anyway. Might as well have company. He should have said no. Should have insisted on paying his own way, or at least paying her back later. Should have maintained the boundaries that kept strangers strangers and prevented you from getting too close to people who might disappear. Instead, he said, I've never had the cherry here. Is it any good? I have no idea. Let's find out. They talked until midnight, not about the big things, not at first. They started with the safe stuff. Jobs. Hers. Data analyst at a tech company, remote work mostly, which let her be home with Noah. His. Construction, residential mostly, the kind of physical labor that left you too tired to think at the end of the day, which was sometimes a mercy. They talked about Denver, how she'd moved here from Seattle after the diagnosis because the Children's Hospital had an experimental treatment program that had since failed, but at least they'd tried. How he'd grown up here, knew every corner of the city, had watched it change from affordable to impossible to navigate on a working-class salary. They talked about their kids. Noah, who loved dinosaurs and astronauts and insisted on combining them into dinosastronauts that he drew in crayon and taped all over the apartment walls. Emma, who wanted to be a veterinarian or a princess or both, and who had recently announced that she was going to marry a horse when she grew up. A horse specifically? Lena asked, laughing. A horse named Mr. Carrot. She's very committed to the relationship. I admire her certainty. She gets it from her mom. Sarah always knew exactly what she wanted. He paused, the name catching in his throat the way it sometimes still did. Emma has her eyes. Same stubborn streak. Sometimes it's... He shook his head. Sometimes it's hard to look at her. But you do anyway. I do anyway. By the time Gloria came to tell them the diner was closing, they'd moved past the safe stuff. Lena had told him about Noah's diagnosis, a rare genetic disorder that attacked the nervous system, that had been stealing pieces of her son one function at a time for 2 years, about the treatments that hadn't worked, the medications that cost more than her monthly mortgage, the insurance company that kept finding reasons to deny claims. Last month they rejected his pain medication, she said, her voice flat with the exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting too long. Said it was experimental. It's been on the market for 15 years. It's not experimental. It's just expensive. What did you do? Paid out of pocket. Put it on a credit card I can't afford. What else was I supposed to do? Let him be in pain? Of course not. The thing is, she wrapped her hands around her long, cold coffee cup. Everyone tells you to be strong, to fight, to never give up. But no one tells you how exhausting it is to be a warrior every single day. How some nights you just want to lie down and stop. How sometimes the bravest thing you do is get out of bed. I know, Ethan said. I know exactly what you mean. I believe you do. She looked at him, really looked, the way people rarely look at each other, like she was trying to memorize his face. Why did you come over here earlier? Why didn't you just leave? He thought about it. The true answer was complicated, tangled up in his own grief, his own loneliness, his own desperate need to feel useful to someone after months of feeling like a failure. But there was a simpler version that was also true. Because you looked like I felt after Sarah died. And I wish someone had sat with me then. Just sat with me. Without trying to fix it. Without telling me it would get better. Just being there. Did anyone? My brother. For about a month. Then he had to go back to his life, and I had to figure out how to build a new one. He shrugged. But that month mattered. It got me through the worst of it, made me believe I could survive. And you think you can do that for me? Help me survive? I think you're already surviving. I think you've been doing it alone for a long time, and I think you're tired. And I think... He stopped himself. This was too much, too fast. They'd known each other for 2 hours. What? Nothing. We should probably... The diner's closing. Ethan? His name on her lips felt strange, intimate, like a door opening that he hadn't realized was there. What were you going to say? He met her eyes. The spring rain green was darker now, in the dim light of the almost empty diner, but no less real. I think you deserve to have someone in your corner, and I know we just met, and I know this is weird, but I don't have anywhere to be tomorrow except work, and you probably don't either, and if you wanted... He took a breath. If you wanted, I could give you my number, not in a... I'm not trying to... I know what you're not trying to do. I just mean, you could call me if you needed someone to talk to, or if you wanted to grab coffee, or if Noah needed someone to help him draw dinosastronauts. He said the word carefully, getting all the syllables right. I'm pretty good at staying in the lines. Lena stared at him for so long he thought he'd made a terrible mistake, that he'd crossed a line he couldn't uncross, that she was about to stand up and walk out, and he'd spend the rest of his life wondering if he'd imagined this entire conversation. Then she pulled a pen from her purse, a fancy one, silver and heavy, and wrote a number on a napkin. She slid it across the table. "This is my number," she said. "Call me. Tomorrow. Not because you feel sorry for me. Not because you're lonely and I'm convenient. Call me because you want to know how the pie was." "How was it?" "Terrible." She smiled. A real smile. The first real smile he'd seen from her all night. The apple was soggy and the cherry was too sweet. It was one of the worst slices of pie I've ever had. "Me too. But I'd do it again." "Yeah." He folded the napkin carefully, tucked it into his jacket pocket close to his heart. "Me too." The bus shelter was 3 blocks from the diner, and the February wind cut through Ethan's jacket like it had a personal grudge against him. He stood under the flickering streetlight, watching his breath fog in the cold air, and thought about what he'd done. Spent his last $4 on a bus ticket, given his number to a woman whose child was dying, promised to call her tomorrow, shared more about his dead wife and grieving heart with a stranger than he'd told his own brother in 3 years. It was reckless, stupid, the kind of thing that got you hurt. But standing there in the cold, with the napkin warm in his pocket and the memory of her smile warm in his chest, Ethan Cole felt something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Hope. It was fragile, tentative, the kind of hope that could shatter at the slightest touch, but it was there, alive, real. He checked his phone. 3 texts from Mrs. Delgado. "Emma went to bed at 8:30 like an angel. She drew you a picture. It's of a horse named Mr. Carrot. The horse is wearing a crown. Your daughter is something special." He typed back, "She really is, thank you. Be home soon." Then he opened a new message, hesitated, started typing. "This is Ethan, from the diner. I just wanted you to know..." He deleted it, tried again. "Hey, it's Ethan. I know I said I'd call tomorrow, but..." Deleted again. "The pie was terrible, and I can't stop thinking about..." Delete. He put the phone away. He would call tomorrow, like he'd promised. Right now, he needed to get home to his daughter, to the small apartment that was always too cold in winter and too hot in summer, to the life he'd built from the ashes of the one he'd lost. But as the bus finally appeared around the corner, headlights cutting through the darkness, Ethan Cole allowed himself one more moment of hope. Maybe this was how it happened. Maybe this was how you started again, not with grand gestures or perfect timing, not with wine and roses and restaurants with cloth napkins, but with bad pie and a cold bus shelter and 2 broken people who recognized something real in each other. Maybe the worst night of his year was about to become the beginning of something he'd never expected. Or maybe he was just tired and lonely and reading too much into a conversation with a stranger. Time would tell. The bus doors opened with a pneumatic hiss, and Ethan climbed aboard, $4 poorer and somehow, impossibly, richer than he'd been in years. Emma was asleep when he got home. He stood in the doorway of her tiny bedroom, painted purple, because she'd insisted, because purple was the color of magic and horses and things that matter, Daddy, and watched her breathe. Her stuffed elephant was clutched to her chest, Her dark curls, so much like Sarah's, spread across the pillow like a halo. She was the best thing he'd ever done. The only thing that made sense in a world that had stopped making sense 3 years ago. "Hey, Bug," he whispered. "Daddy's home." She didn't stir. He crossed the room, careful to avoid the creaky floorboard by the dresser, and knelt beside her bed, brushed a curl from her forehead, pressed a kiss to her temple. "I met someone tonight," he said, quiet enough not to wake her. "Someone who's going through something really hard, like we did, like we still are." He watched her sleep. "I don't know if anything's going to come of it. Probably not. But for the first time in a long time, I want to find out, too." Emma mumbled something in her sleep, probably about Mr. Carrot, and turned over, taking her elephant with her. Ethan stood, knees protesting the way they always did now, 34 years old and already falling apart. But he made it to the door, made it down the hall to his own room, made it into bed still wearing his construction dust because he was too tired to shower. He pulled out his phone one more time, looked at the napkin with Lena's number, typed it into his contacts, then stared at the blank name field. "Lena," he typed, then deleted it. "Lena from the diner," deleted. "The woman who taught me that sometimes the worst night of your life can also be the beginning of something you never expected." Too long, deleted. He settled on Lena, simple, true. Then he set his phone on the nightstand, closed his eyes, and dreamed for the first time in months of something other than loss. He dreamed of spring rain and green eyes, and a 5-year-old astronaut named Noah reaching for the stars. Ethan called her the next morning. He'd been awake since 5, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, rehearsing what he would say. The words kept rearranging themselves in his head like puzzle pieces that refused to fit. Too casual sounded like he didn't care. Too serious sounded like he was proposing marriage. Too funny sounded like he was trying too hard. By 6:30, Emma was awake and demanding pancakes with "The faces on them, Daddy, you know the ones," and he'd pushed Lena to the back of his mind while he negotiated the complex politics of breakfast with a 7-year-old who had very specific opinions about the proper ratio of blueberries to chocolate chips. By 8, Mrs. Delgado had arrived to watch Emma for the day, Saturday, but Ethan had picked up an extra shift because extra shifts meant extra money, and extra money meant maybe he could fix the heater before March. By 8:15, he was sitting in his truck in the parking lot of his apartment complex, phone in hand, heart pounding like he was 17 again, and about to ask someone to prom. "This is ridiculous," he muttered to himself. "She's just a person. You're just a person. People call each other. It's a normal thing that normal people do." He dialed before he could talk himself out of it. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Hello?" Her voice was different in the morning, softer, like she'd just woken up, or maybe like she hadn't slept at all. "Hey, it's Ethan, from the diner, from last night, with the pie." He closed his eyes, wincing. "That was too many identifying details, you probably remember." A pause, then, "The pie was terrible. The worst. I've been thinking about it all morning. How did we eat the whole thing?" Desperation, loneliness, a complete absence of self-respect. She laughed, that same fragile, real laugh from the night before, and something in Ethan's chest unclenched. "How are you?" he asked. "Really? I don't know how to answer that question honestly." "Then answer it dishonestly. Whatever's easier." Another pause. He could hear something in the background, a television maybe, turned low, cartoon sounds. "Noah had a rough night," she said finally. "He gets these headaches. The doctors say it's the pressure building up. Never mind. You don't need to hear about this." I asked. "You were being polite." "I wasn't, actually. I'm not very good at polite. Ask anyone who's ever worked with me." She was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted, still tired, but warmer. "He's okay now. He's watching his dinosaur show. It's the only thing that helps after the bad nights. Dinosaurs and orange juice and his weighted blanket. That sounds like a pretty solid recovery protocol. We've had practice." Ethan glanced at the clock on his dashboard. He was going to be late for work if he didn't leave in the next 5 minutes. He didn't move. "I was thinking," he said, "and you can absolutely say no, This is a weird thing to suggest. We barely know each other. You're stalling. I'm building suspense. You're stalling. Okay, yes, I'm stalling. He took a breath. I was thinking maybe I could come over, meet Noah. I meant what I said about the Dinosastronauts. I really am good at staying in the lines. Silence stretched across the phone line, long enough that Ethan started preparing his graceful exit, the apology he would offer, the way he would pretend this didn't sting. Then Lena said, Today? Not today. I have work. But tomorrow? If that's not too soon. If that's not weird. It's definitely weird. Yeah. But weird might be okay right now. He heard her take a breath, could almost see her making a decision. Tomorrow. Come for lunch. I'll text you the address. What should I bring? Nothing, just yourself. Can I bring Emma? My daughter. She would love Noah. She's obsessed with space and animals and anything that combines them. You want to bring your daughter to meet my dying son? The words hung in the air, stark and brutal in their honesty. Yes, Ethan said simply. If that's okay with you. Why? Because she needs to learn that life isn't always easy and that people help each other anyway. Because I think she'd be good for him. Because... He stopped, not sure how to say the rest. Because what? Because I think you need to see that not everyone is going to walk away when things get hard. The silence that followed was different, heavier, like something fundamental was shifting between them. Bring her, Lena said finally. Bring Emma. I'll make sandwiches. She only eats peanut butter and jelly with the crusts cut off. Then I'll cut off the crusts. You don't have to... Ethan. His name again? In her voice, still sounding like a door opening. I want to. Let me. He closed his eyes, leaned his head back against the seat. Okay, tomorrow, lunch, peanut butter and jelly, no crusts. It's a date. Is it? I don't know. Maybe it's just sandwiches. Sandwiches are good. Sandwiches are great. I'll see you tomorrow, Lena. See you tomorrow, Ethan. She hung up first. He sat in his truck for another full minute, phone pressed to his chest, breathing like he'd just run a marathon. Then he started the engine and drove to work, late for the first time in 3 years. He didn't even care. The apartment was smaller than he'd expected. Ethan stood in the doorway, holding Emma's hand, taking in the space that Lena had turned into a home. It was a one-bedroom, he could tell that immediately from the layout, with a fold-out couch in the living room that clearly served as Lena's bed. The furniture was mismatched but clean. The walls were covered in Noah's drawings, dinosaurs in spacesuits, rockets shaped like T-Rexes, a family portrait that showed 2 stick figures holding hands under a yellow sun. Only 2 figures. Mother and son. You must be Emma. Ethan looked down to find a small boy standing in front of them. Noah Parker was 5 years old and impossibly thin, with his mother's green eyes and a smile that seemed too big for his face. He was wearing dinosaur pajamas even though it was noon, and his bald head, the chemotherapy, Ethan realized with a jolt, was covered by a baseball cap that read Space Commander in glittery letters. I'm Noah, the boy said. My mom says you're here to draw with me. Emma, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since they'd arrived, stepped forward. She was clutching her favorite purple backpack, the one she'd insisted on bringing because it contained supplies. I brought crayons, she announced. 64 colors, including silver and gold. Noah's eyes went wide. Do you have space gray? I have regular gray and sparkle gray. Is that the same? Sparkle gray is better than space gray. I know, right? And just like that, they were off. 2 small humans who had decided in the space of 30 seconds that they were going to be friends. Emma dropped her backpack on the living room floor and started unpacking crayons while Noah watched with the intensity of someone witnessing a miracle. Ethan looked at Lena, who was standing by the kitchen doorway with an expression he couldn't quite read. That was fast, he said. Kids don't overthink things. They just decide. She gestured toward the kitchen. Come help me with the sandwiches. They'll be fine. He followed her into the small galley kitchen where a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter sat on the counter next to a package of strawberry jelly. She'd remembered peanut butter and jelly, crust cut off. Thank you, he said, for having us. Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would. I said I would. People say a lot of things. She turned to the counter, started spreading peanut butter with more focus than the task required. He watched her hands, slender, careful, trembling slightly, and understood what she wasn't saying. The guy from the diner, he said quietly. He's not the first one who's left, is he? Her hand stilled. No. How many? Enough to stop counting. Lena, it's fine. She resumed her spreading, movements sharp now, controlled. I understand it, actually. I do. It's a lot to take on. A sick kid, medical bills, the constant appointments and emergencies and middle-of-the-night crises. No one signs up for that. No one wants to. I'm here. She stopped again, didn't turn around. I know, she said. That's what scares me. From the living room came the sound of Emma's laughter, high and bright, followed by Noah's voice explaining something about how dinosaurs could have survived if they'd just learned to fly rockets instead of waiting for the asteroid. He has good days and bad days, Lena said, still facing the counter. Today is a good day. You're seeing the good version of him. The version that talks and laughs and makes up stories about dino-astronauts. But there's another version, the one who can't get out of bed, who cries because everything hurts and I can't fix it, who asks me why this is happening to him and I don't have an answer. I know. You don't. Not yet. She finally turned to face him, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. If you stay, if you really stay, you're going to see things that break your heart. You're going to watch him get worse. You're going to be there when I fall apart, and I will fall apart, Ethan. I'm barely holding it together now. I know, he said again. I'm not asking you to hold it together. Then what are you asking? He took a step closer, then another, close enough that he could see the dark circles under her eyes, the way her mascara was slightly smudged from wiping away tears before he arrived, the fine lines around her mouth from years of forcing smiles she didn't feel. I'm asking for sandwiches, he said. Just sandwiches, and maybe another lunch after this one, and maybe a dinner somewhere that isn't a 24-hour diner with terrible pie. I'm not asking you to let me save you. I'm not asking to be your hero. I'm just asking to be here, in whatever way you need, for however long you'll let me. Lena stared at him. A tear escaped, tracked down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Why? She whispered. Because you asked me how I keep going that night in the diner, and I told you, Emma. She needs me, so I keep going. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. His fingers brushed her cheek, caught the tear before it reached her jaw. But Emma's not the only reason anymore. She closed her eyes, leaned into his touch just slightly, just enough. Ethan, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to decide anything. Just let me make sandwiches with you. Let me watch my daughter make your son laugh. Let me be here. She opened her eyes. Spring rain, green leaves, a door opening. Okay, she said. Okay. From the living room, Noah's voice carried, Emma, look! I drew a dino-astronaut that's also a princess. See the crown? That's the best dino-astronaut I've ever seen, Emma replied. Can we tape it on the wall with the others? Yeah, Mom says I can tape anything I want on the wall. It's my art gallery. Lena laughed, a wet, broken sound that was somehow also the most beautiful thing Ethan had heard in years. We should finish the sandwiches, she said. They're going to be starving after all that art. Yeah, we should. Neither of them moved. Ethan? Yeah? Thank you for not walking away. Thank you for letting me stay. She reached up, covered his hand with hers where it still rested against her cheek, held it there for a heartbeat. Then she stepped back, took a breath, and turned to the counter. Crust's off, right? Crust's off. I can do that. I know you can. They made sandwiches together, side by side in the tiny kitchen, while two children who had just met created an entire universe in the living room. Dino-astronauts, princess rockets, a friendship forged in crayon and imagination. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't a happy ending, but it was a beginning. And sometimes, that's enough. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of small moments. Ethan started coming over every Sunday. then Wednesday evenings, then Saturday mornings, when Noah had the most energy and Emma was practically vibrating with excitement by the time they reached Lena's apartment door. The kids became inseparable in the way only children can. Instant best friends, partners in imaginary crimes, co-conspirators in a world of their own creation. Emma appointed herself Noah's official assistant, helping him with everything from choosing which dinosaur pajamas to wear to deciding what color the alien planet should be in their drawings. Noah, in turn, taught Emma everything he knew about space, which was considerable for a 5-year-old, and patiently explained why actually the moon was not made of cheese, Emma. That's ridiculous. It's made of rocks, he said one afternoon with the certainty of someone who had researched this extensively. Gray rocks and dust and footprints from the astronauts who visited. But what if the cheese is under the rocks? Emma countered. What if the astronauts just didn't dig deep enough? Noah considered this with genuine seriousness. We could go and check. When I'm an astronaut. You're going to be an astronaut? I'm going to be everything. A dinosastronaut, a princess rocket scientist, a doctor who works in space. Can I come with you? Obviously, you're my assistant. Ethan watched them from the kitchen doorway, coffee in hand, something warm and aching building in his chest. Lena stood beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. He talks about the future like it's certain, she murmured, like there's no doubt. Maybe that's how kids survive. They don't know how to give up. Or maybe he's braver than all of us. Maybe both. Lena turned to look at him. She'd stopped wearing as much makeup on his visits, had stopped trying to hide the exhaustion behind carefully applied concealer. He preferred her this way, real, unguarded. You've been here every week, she said, for almost a month. I have. It's a lot, Ethan. The driving, the time, the... Stop. What? Stop trying to give me an exit. He set down his coffee, turned to face her fully. I don't want an exit. I'm not looking for one. Every time you try to push me away, I'm going to push back. That's just how this works now. This? What exactly is this? It was the question they'd both been avoiding. The relationship that had no name, the connection that defied easy categorization. They weren't dating, not really. There had been no kisses, no declarations, no romantic dinners by candlelight. But there was also nothing casual about the way Ethan's heart raced when his phone buzzed with her name, or the way Lena's whole face changed when she heard his knock at the door. I don't know, he admitted. Does it have to be something specific? My therapist would say yes. What would you say? She was quiet for a moment. In the living room, the kids were arguing about whether dinosaurs had feathers, which Emma insisted was scientifically proven, Noah. I saw it on TV. I would say, Lena started, then stopped, started again. I would say that I've been alone for a very long time, and that being alone made sense when Noah was first diagnosed because I needed to focus on him, only him, nothing else mattered. But now I'm starting to wonder if I was just afraid. Of what? Of this. She gestured between them, the invisible thread that had been tightening since that night in the diner. Of letting someone in, of giving myself one more thing to lose. The words hit him like a physical weight. One more thing to lose. He understood that fear intimately, knew the way it wrapped around your heart, and squeezed until breathing became an act of will. I can't promise you won't lose me, he said carefully, but I can promise that I'm not going anywhere by choice. Whatever happens, however this ends, it won't be because I walked away. How do you know? Because I've already lost everything once. I know what that feels like, and I know that the only thing worse than loss is regret. I'd rather have something beautiful for a short time than have nothing at all forever. Lena's eyes glistened. That's either the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me or the saddest. Can it be both? Maybe. She reached out, took his hand. Her fingers were cold like they always were, but her grip was strong. I'm scared, Ethan. I'm so scared. Me too. You don't seem scared. I'm terrified. I'm terrified that I'm going to fall in love with your son and have to watch him. Couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't put words to that particular horror. I'm terrified that I'm going to mess this up somehow, say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, be the wrong thing, I'm terrified that Emma's going to get attached and then I'll push you away and break her heart. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Then don't. She laughed, but it was wet, choked. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. In the living room, Noah's voice rose with excitement. Emma, look, I finished the rocket. It's got a dinosaur driver and everything. Does it have cup holders? Rockets need cup holders for the juice boxes. Oh no, I forgot cup holders. It's okay, we can add them. See, right here. Ethan watched Lena watching them. Watched the way her expression shifted from anguish to something softer. Tenderness. Hope. He's happy, she whispered. I haven't seen him this happy in months. Emma's good for him. You're good for him. For both of us. She squeezed his hand. I'm not going to push you away. I can't promise I won't try. It's instinct at this point, but I promise to fight it. To let you fight back. Is that enough? It's everything. They stood there in the kitchen doorway, holding hands, watching their children create worlds out of crayons and imagination. Outside, February was giving way to March, the first hints of spring warming the Denver air. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was starting to feel like something real. The bad days came without warning. One Wednesday, Ethan arrived to find the apartment dark, the curtains drawn, the usual sounds of Noah's cartoons replaced by a heavy, pressing silence. Lena answered the door in sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, her eyes swollen from crying. He's having a bad day, she said, before Ethan could ask. You should probably go. Can I help? No, there's nothing anyone can do. He just needs to rest and wait for the pain to pass and... Her voice cracked. You should go. But Emma was already pushing past both of them, small feet determined on the threadbare carpet. Emma, wait, Ethan started, but she was gone, heading straight for Noah's bedroom like she had a sixth sense for where he would be. They found her standing in the doorway, backpack clutched to her chest, staring at the small figure curled up on the bed. Noah was crying. Soft, hitching sobs that he was trying to muffle with his pillow. His dinosaur pajamas were dark with sweat, and even from the doorway, Ethan could see the way his hands were pressed against his temples, fighting a headache that no 7-year-old should ever have to endure. Noah? Emma whispered. Go away. The words came out strangled, nothing like the bright-eyed boy who had spent last Sunday explaining the entire history of the Cretaceous period. Please. I don't want you to see me like this. Like what? Sick. Crying. Stupid. Emma dropped her backpack on the floor, walked to the bed, climbed up beside him without waiting for permission. You're not stupid, she said. You're the smartest person I know. I can't even... Noah sobbed again, his whole body shaking. I can't even play today. I can't do anything. I'm useless. You're not useless. You're just hurting. Emma lay down beside him, carefully, making sure not to jostle the bed. When I hurt, my daddy holds my hand. Can I hold yours? A pause. Then slowly, Noah reached out. His small fingers, trembling with pain, wrapped around Emma's. It helps, he whispered. A little. Good. I'll stay until it helps a lot. Ethan felt Lena's hand find his, felt her weight sag against him as something in her finally gave way. She's never... Lena's voice was barely audible. No one has ever... I know. They stood in the doorway watching Emma hold Noah's hand, watching two children navigate something that most adults couldn't handle. Emma started talking, soft, gentle, a stream of consciousness about Mr. Carrot and the wedding she was definitely still planning, and the dress she was going to wear, which would be purple, obviously, because purple was the color of magic and horses and things that matter. Noah's sobs began to quiet. His breathing steadied. The hand pressed against his temple slowly relaxed. Tell me more, he whispered. About Mr. Carrot. Well, he has a very big stable, and he likes apples but not carrots, even though his name is Mr. Carrot. I think that's ironic. Do you know what ironic means? No. Me neither. But my daddy says it all the time, so it must be important. Against all odds, Noah laughed. It was weak, exhausted, nothing like his usual bright energy, but it was a laugh. Ethan pulled Lena out of the doorway, gently guiding her to the kitchen. She was shaking, her whole body trembling with the effort of holding herself together. "Breathe," he said. "Just breathe." "I can't. He's. I know. Just breathe." She grabbed his shirt, fisted the fabric, held on like he was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting beneath her feet. "I'm so tired, Ethan. I'm so goddamn tired of watching him suffer. Every time I think I've got a handle on it, every time I think I'm strong enough, he has a day like today and I realize I'm not strong at all. I'm just pretending. I've been pretending for 2 years and I don't know how much longer I can. You don't have to pretend with me. I don't know how to do anything else." He pulled her into his arms. She resisted for half a second. Instinct, self-protection, the wall she'd been building for years, and then she collapsed against him. Not crying, just breathing, just letting herself be held. "You're not alone anymore," he said into her hair. "Whatever happens, whatever comes, you're not alone." She didn't respond, but her arms came up, wrapped around him, held on with the same desperate strength she'd given to his shirt. They stayed like that for a long time. In the bedroom, Emma was still talking. Noah was still listening. And outside, March was settling over Denver, bringing the first warmth of spring to a world that had been cold for far too long. Ethan went back to work that night with a renewed intensity that his coworkers noticed immediately. "You're volunteering for doubles?" Mike Hernandez raised an eyebrow. Mike was the crew foreman, a weathered man in his 50s who had known Ethan since Sarah's funeral. "Since when?" "Since now. Whatever's available." "The overtime's going to kill you." "I'll manage." Mike studied him for a long moment, the kind of look that only comes from years of working alongside someone, knowing their patterns, their limits, their tells. "This about the woman?" he asked finally. "The one you've been seeing?" "I'm not—" Ethan stopped, tried to figure out how to explain something he didn't fully understand himself. "Her son is sick, really sick. Medical bills are piling up. Insurance keeps denying claims. And I can't just sit there and watch her drown while you what?" "While I'm falling in love with her." The words came out before he could stop them. He hadn't said them aloud before, hadn't even admitted them to himself. "And with her son. And the whole situation is a mess, and I know it's probably too soon, and I know it's probably stupid, but nothing stupid about loving people," Mike said. "Stupid would be not loving them because you're scared." "Since when are you a philosopher?" "Since my third wife taught me the hard way." Mike clapped him on the shoulder. "Take the doubles. I'll put in a good word with payroll, see if we can get you approved for the emergency fund." "What emergency fund?" "Union's got a hardship program for members dealing with medical situations. Doesn't matter if it's your situation or someone you're helping. If the medical bills are drowning someone, the fund kicks in." Ethan stared at him. "I didn't know that existed." "Most people don't. It's not advertised because there's not enough money to help everyone. But I've known you for what, 6 years? You've never asked for anything, never missed a shift, never complained about the bad assignments." Mike's voice softened. "You're a good man, Ethan Cole. Let someone help you for once." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll fill out the paperwork. I'll leave it in your locker tomorrow." That night, Ethan worked until his muscles screamed and his bones ached, and every inch of his body was begging for rest. He thought about Lena, alone in her apartment, dealing with bad days that would only get worse. He thought about Noah, fighting a battle that no child should have to fight. He thought about Emma, who had somehow become the bravest person he knew, holding a dying boy's hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. He thought about love, how it showed up in the strangest places, how it demanded everything and offered no guarantees, how you could lose it all in a heartbeat. He knew that better than anyone, but how the alternative was so much worse. Not loving, not trying, not being there when it mattered. By the time he clocked out, the sun was rising over Denver, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. He sat in his truck, too tired to drive, and pulled out his phone. 3 messages from Lana. The first, "Noah's asleep." The headache finally broke around midnight. The second, "Emma was incredible. I've never seen anyone calm him down like that." The third, "Thank you for everything, for being here, for not running, for letting your daughter teach my son that he's not alone." He typed back, "I'm always here. Get some sleep. I'll call you tomorrow." Then he added, before he could talk himself out of it, "I love you. Sent." He stared at the screen, heart pounding, waiting for a response. The typing bubbles appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, her message came through. I love you too. I'm terrified, but I love you too. Ethan leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. The sun was warm on his face. His body ached in ways he'd forgotten were possible. He had exactly $12 in his account until payday, and he'd just signed up for doubles that would leave him half dead for the next month. But for the first time in 3 years, for the first time since the night he'd lost Sarah and their unborn child, Ethan Cole felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. In love, terrified, alive, and completely, utterly unwilling to be anywhere else. The insurance denial letter arrived on a Tuesday. Lena was standing at the kitchen counter, sorting through mail she'd been avoiding for 3 days, when she found the envelope from Nationwide Health Insurance. The paper was crisp, official, the company logo embossed in corporate blue at the top. Everything about it screamed authority, finality, a decision made by someone in a distant office who had never met her son. She didn't need to open it. She'd received enough of these letters over the past 2 years to recognize the weight of bad news in her hands. But she opened it anyway, because that's what you do when your child is dying, and every piece of paper might be the difference between comfort and suffering. Denial of coverage, the header read. Claim number 847291NP. The medication in question was a specialized pain management drug that Noah's neurologist had been requesting for 6 months. It was designed specifically for children with his condition, specifically to manage the kind of deep, grinding nerve pain that kept him awake at night and left him sobbing into his pillow. It cost $1,800 a month. Without insurance, it was impossible. With insurance, it was apparently still impossible. Experimental treatment, Lena read aloud, her voice flat. Not approved for pediatric use in the specified condition. Alternative generic medications recommended. The alternative generic medications had been tried. All of them. They either didn't work or made Noah so drowsy he couldn't stay awake to eat, couldn't play with Emma, couldn't be a child for the little time he had left. Her hands were shaking when she called the insurance company. She waited on hold for 47 minutes, listening to tinny classical music and periodic reminders that her call was very important to them. When she finally reached a human being, a woman with a pleasant voice and a script she'd clearly read 1,000 times, Lena explained the situation with as much calm as she could muster. I understand your frustration, Ms. Parker, the woman said, but the medication in question has not been approved by our medical review board for coverage under your plan. My son's doctor prescribed it, his specialist, the person who actually examines him and knows his medical history. I understand. However, our medical review board has determined that the treatment is not medically necessary at this time. He's in constant pain. How is pain management not medically necessary? There are alternative medications that are covered under your plan. The alternatives don't work. We've tried them all. His doctor has documented this extensively. I can submit your case for secondary review, but I should inform you that these decisions are rarely overturned. How long does secondary review take? 6 to 8 weeks. Lena closed her eyes. 6 to 8 weeks. Noah might not have 6 to 8 weeks of good days left. Every day the pain went unmanaged was a day stolen from whatever time remained. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Miss Parker? No, Lena said. No, there isn't. She hung up the phone and sat down on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, and let herself cry. Not the quiet, controlled tears she'd learned to shed in private, but the raw, ugly sobs that she usually saved for the shower, for the car, for the moments when Noah was asleep and couldn't hear his mother falling apart. That's how Ethan found her when he arrived an hour later. He let himself in with the key she'd given him 2 weeks ago, calling out his usual greeting, expecting to find her and Noah in the living room working on their latest art project. Instead, he found the apartment silent and Lena crumpled on the kitchen floor, a piece of paper clutched in her hand. Lena, what happened? She couldn't speak, just handed him the letter. He read it quickly, his expression hardening with each line. By the time he finished, a muscle was ticking in his jaw, the same tell she'd noticed when he talked about the contractors who had underpaid him, the landlord who kept ignoring repairs, all the small injustices that working people absorb daily without complaint. 1,800 a month, he said. Yes. And the appeal takes 2 months. Yes. Where's Noah? Mrs. Patterson's apartment. She's watching him while I... Lena gestured vaguely at herself, at the floor, at the disaster of her current state. While I figured out what to do, Ethan set the letter on the counter. Then he sat down on the floor beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. We'll figure this out, he said. How? I'm already drowning in debt. I've maxed out 3 credit cards. My savings are gone. I can't... She choked on the words. I can't watch him suffer because I don't have enough money. I can't let him hurt because some insurance company decided his comfort isn't worth $1,800 a month. You won't have to. Ethan, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. His voice was steady, calm, the voice of someone who had already made a decision. I've been picking up doubles for the past month. I have some money saved, and there's a hardship fund through my union. Mike told me about it. We can apply for that. I can't take your money. It's not taking, it's sharing. That's the same thing. No, it isn't. He turned to face her, took her hands in his. They were still shaking. Lena, listen to me. I love you. I love Noah. I'm not going to sit here and watch either of you suffer when I have the ability to help. That's not who I am. That's not who we are. We? Yes, we. You and me. You and whatever this is, whatever we're building, it's not something I do halfway. I'm all in. Have been since the diner. She stared at him through blurred eyes. You've known me for 2 months. I've known you for 2 months, and I'd give you everything I have. Imagine what I'll do when it's been 2 years. A sob escaped her, but this time it was mixed with something else. Relief. Gratitude. The overwhelming sensation of not being alone. I can't ask you to do this, she whispered. You're not asking. I'm offering. He squeezed her hands. Let me help, please. She wanted to say no. Every instinct she'd developed over years of single motherhood, years of handling everything herself because there was no one else, screamed at her to refuse, to protect herself from the inevitable disappointment when he changed his mind, when the weight became too much, when he realized what he'd signed up for and walked away like everyone else. But she was so tired, so impossibly, crushingly tired. Okay, she said. Okay. Ethan pulled out his phone and started typing. I'm texting Mike right now about the hardship fund, and I'll talk to the guys tomorrow about picking up extra shifts. The guys? My crew. They're good people. When one of us needs help, we help. You can't ask them to work extra shifts for a stranger. You're not a stranger. You're my... He stopped, searching for the right word. You're mine, and Noah's mine, and Emma's yours. That's how family works. Family. The word hit her like a physical force, knocking loose something she'd been holding on to for years, the belief that she was alone, the certainty that no one would stay. Family, she repeated. Yeah, family. From somewhere down the hall, she heard Mrs. Patterson's door open, heard Noah's voice calling out, Mom, I drew a new Dino-Sastronaut. This one has lasers. Lena wiped her eyes, pulled herself together with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done it 1,000 times before. I should go get him, she said. I'll come with you. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I want to. They stood up together. Ethan's hand found hers, held on, didn't let go. When Noah saw them walking toward him, his face lit up with the pure, uncomplicated joy that only children possess. Ethan, you came! Look at my Dino-Sastronaut. He's got lasers and a jetpack. That's the most powerful Dino-Sastronaut I've ever seen. I know, right? Mom, can Ethan stay for dinner? Can he? Please? Lena looked at Ethan. He was already looking back at her, waiting, letting her decide. Yes, she said. Ethan can stay for dinner. And after dinner, can we work on the rocket? Yes. And can we call Emma? I want to show her my lasers. Yes, baby. We can call Emma. Noah whooped with excitement and grabbed Ethan's free hand, pulling him toward the apartment. Come on, we have so much to do. Ethan let himself be pulled, but he didn't let go of Lena's hand. The three of them walked down the hallway together, linked, connected, a chain that refused to break. For the first time in 2 years, Lena allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't going to have to do this alone. The crew meeting happened the following Saturday. Ethan hadn't planned to make a speech. He'd intended to quietly approach Mike about the hardship fund, fill out the paperwork, and handle things privately. But word traveled fast on construction sites, and by Thursday afternoon, everyone knew something was going on. "Heard you've been picking up doubles for a month straight," said Carlos, the youngest member of the crew, while they were cleaning up after a shift. "That's brutal, man. You okay?" "I'm fine." Nobody picks up doubles for a month because they're fine. It's personal. Personal like money trouble or personal like woman trouble? Ethan sighed. Carlos was 23, built like a truck, and had the emotional sensitivity of a golden retriever. He asked questions because he cared, not because he was nosy. It was hard to be annoyed with him. Both, Ethan admitted, but mostly the second one. "The new lady you've been seeing, the one with the kid? Her son is sick, really sick, and the insurance company is jerking them around on medication. I'm trying to help." Carlos's face shifted from curious to serious in an instant. "How sick?" "Terminal." The word hung in the air between them, heavy and final. "Damn," Carlos said quietly. "That's damn." "Yeah. What do you need? Seriously, what do you need?" "Right now, just more hours." And Mike mentioned the hardship fund. "The hardship fund takes forever. Red tape and approvals and all that." Carlos pulled out his phone. "Let me make some calls." "Carlos, you don't have to shut up. You do the same for any of us." He was right. Ethan would. Had, in fact, when Carlos's grandmother needed surgery last year and the family was scrambling to cover the deductible. Ethan had organized a collection, twisted arms, made sure the money was there when it was needed. That's how it worked. You helped people. They helped you back. The circle continued. By Saturday morning, the entire crew had assembled at Mike's house for what was being called an emergency meeting. Ethan walked in expecting maybe 5 or 6 guys. Instead, he found 23 construction workers crowded into a living room that smelled like coffee and determination. "What is this?" he asked. "This," Mike said, "is your family. Sit down." Ethan sat. Mike stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, looking every inch the foreman he'd been for 30 years. Ethan's been killing himself with doubles for a month. Most of you know why by now. For those who don't, his girlfriend's kid is dying. Insurance won't cover the meds. He needs help. A murmur ran through the room. Ethan felt his face heat with something between embarrassment and gratitude. "I've talked to the union about the hardship fund," Mike continued. "They're processing the application, but it's going to take time. In the meantime, we're going to do what we always do when one of our own is struggling." He pulled out a coffee can, the same kind they used for collections at every funeral, every wedding, every emergency. It was already half full of bills. "I'm not asking anyone to break the bank. Give what you can. If you can't give money, give hours. Pick up shifts and donate the overtime to Ethan's fund. We're a family here. We take care of each other." One by one, the men in the room stood up. They walked to the coffee can and dropped in whatever they had. 5s, 10s, 20s. One guy pulled out 100 and shrugged when Ethan tried to protest. "My kid was sick last year," the man said. "You organized the collection. This is me paying it forward." By the time everyone had contributed, the coffee can was overflowing. Mike counted it later, $2,300. Enough to cover the first month of medication and part of the second, but that wasn't all. "I'm taking your Saturday shifts for the next 6 weeks, Carlos announced. "Don't argue. I need the hours anyway." "I've got your Wednesdays," said another man. "My wife's been complaining I'm home too much. This gives me an excuse." "I'll cover the union paperwork," Mike added. "Get the hardship fund pushed through faster. I know people." Ethan looked around the room at these men. Some he'd known for years, some he barely knew at all, and felt something crack open in his chest. "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything," Mike replied. "Just take care of that family of yours. That's all we ask." That night, Ethan drove to Lena's apartment with an envelope full of cash and a heart full of something he couldn't quite name. She opened the door in her usual exhausted state. Noah had had another bad day. She'd been up since 4. but her expression shifted when she saw his face. "What happened?" she asked. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." He handed her the envelope. "Open it." She did, counted the bills, looked up at him with eyes that were suddenly impossibly bright. "Where did this come from?" "My crew. They took up a collection, and they're covering my shifts so I can spend more time here, and Mike's pushing through the union hardship fund, and—" He had to stop, had to take a breath. "They want to help. They don't even know you, and they want to help." Lena stared at the money in her hands. $2,300. Enough to buy Noah's medication, enough to give him comfort, enough to mean everything. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would strangers do this?" "Because they're not strangers. They're family. My family." He stepped closer, cupped her face in his hands. "And you're my family now. You and Noah. That means their family, too." She broke then. Not the controlled, quiet crying she usually allowed herself, but great racking sobs that shook her whole body. Ethan pulled her into his arms and held her while she fell apart, while 2 years of carrying everything alone finally caught up with her. "I've got you," he murmured into her hair. "I've got you. I can't. I don't. You don't have to do anything. Just let me hold you." So she did. She let him hold her. Let him carry the weight for just a moment. Let herself believe that maybe the world wasn't as cruel as she'd thought, that maybe there were still good people who helped each other without expecting anything in return. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were swollen and her face was blotchy, and she was the most beautiful thing Ethan had ever seen. "I love you," she said. "I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too, and I'm not going anywhere. Promise?" "Promise." From the bedroom, Noah's voice called out, "Mom, is Ethan here? Can he come read me a story?" Lena laughed, wet, exhausted, but real. "Yeah, baby, he's here. Tell him I want the one about the Dinoastronaut who saves the galaxy." "I'll tell him." She looked at Ethan, and something passed between them. An understanding, a commitment, a choice to keep walking forward together, no matter what came next. "He's waiting," she said. "Then let's not keep him waiting." They walked to Noah's room together, hand in hand, and Ethan read the story about the Dinoastronaut who saved the galaxy. He did all the voices. He made the rocket ship sounds. He watched Noah's face light up with wonder, watched him forget for just a moment that he was sick, that he was dying, that his body was failing him one cell at a time. And when the story was over and Noah was drifting off to sleep, Ethan sat beside his bed and made a silent promise. Whatever time this boy had left, it would be filled with love, with family, with Dinoastronauts and rocket ships and all the magic that childhood was supposed to contain. He would make sure of it, no matter what it cost. The medication arrived 3 days later. Lena had called in every favor, pushed every button, expedited every process. The money from Ethan's crew covered the first month. The hardship fund, miraculously approved in record time thanks to Mike's connections, would cover the second and third. After that, they would figure something out. They always did. The first dose was administered on a Thursday evening. Emma was there because she was always there now, and she held Noah's hand while Lena carefully measured out the liquid and helped him swallow it. "It tastes weird," Noah announced, "like great medicine, but also like feet." "How do you know what feet taste like?" Emma asked. "I licked my toe once, for science." "That's disgusting. That's science, Emma." Sometimes science is disgusting. Ethan and Lena exchanged a look across the room, the look of parents who had learned to communicate entire conversations in a single glance. Their look said, "He's joking. He's being himself. The medicine is working." Within an hour, the change was visible. The tension around Noah's eyes eased, the furrow between his brows, the one that had become permanent over the past months, smoothed out. He stopped pressing his hands against his temples. He started laughing, really laughing, the bright, unself-conscious laughter of a 5-year-old who had temporarily been freed from pain. "Can we build a fort?" he asked. "Mom, can we? Please." "I want to build a fort and pretend we're astronauts on a space station." "We can build a fort," Lena said, and her voice cracked on the words. They built the fort together, all 4 of them, working as a team. Ethan and Lena handled the heavy lifting, dragging the couch cushions and draping the blankets. Emma and Noah directed operations from the floor, arguing about optimal structural integrity and the proper placement of the entrance tunnel. When it was done, they all crawled inside. The fort was barely big enough for 4 people, and everyone was squeezed together in a tangle of limbs and cushions and warm breath. Noah was pressed against Ethan's side, Emma against Lena's. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Noah said, "This is my family." The words were simple, matter-of-fact, delivered with the certainty of a child who saw the world clearly. "This is my family," he repeated. "Ethan and Mom and Emma and me. We're a family now." Emma nodded solemnly. "We're definitely a family." Ethan looked at Lena over the children's heads. Her eyes were full of tears, but she was smiling, really smiling, the kind of smile that transformed her whole face. "Yeah," he said. "We are." "Does that mean you and Mom are going to get married?" Noah asked. "Because that's what families do. They get married and live together." "Noah," Lena started, "I'm just asking. It seems like the logical next step." "The logical next step," Ethan repeated, amused despite himself. "You've been spending too much time with Emma." "Emma's very logical." "I am," Emma confirmed. "I'm the most logical person I know." "What if we just focus on being a family for now?" Lena suggested gently. "The other stuff can come later." Noah considered this. "Okay, but I think you should get married eventually. Ethan makes good pancakes, and you're always happier when he's here." Out of the mouths of babes, Ethan thought. Out of the mouths of wise, dying babes who saw everything and understood more than anyone gave them credit for. "I'll take it under advisement," Lena said. "That means she's thinking about it," Emma Stage whispered to Noah. "I know. I'm not stupid. I never said you were stupid. Good. Because I'm very smart. I know about dinosaurs and space and medicine." "That's true. You're basically a genius." "Thank you, Emma. You're basically a genius too." Ethan lay there in the cramped fort surrounded by his family, because that's what they were now, and let the moment wash over him. The joy, the grief, the fierce, impossible hope that somehow everything would be okay. He knew it wouldn't be. Not really. Not in the way that fairy tales promised. But for now, in this moment, 4 people who had found each other against all odds were lying in a blanket fort, pretending to be astronauts on a space station. And that was enough. It had to be enough. Because sometimes enough was all you got. The good days stretched into weeks, and the weeks began to feel almost normal. Noah started having more energy. The medication managed his pain well enough that he could play for hours without needing to rest. He and Emma developed increasingly elaborate games, ongoing sagas about dinosastronauts saving distant planets, complex negotiations between alien species that always seemed to end in intergalactic pizza parties, adventures that spanned multiple afternoons and required detailed maps drawn in crayon. Ethan moved in gradually, the way these things happen when no one's really paying attention. First it was a toothbrush left in the bathroom, then a change of clothes in Lena's closet, then his toolbox in the hall, his coffee mug in the cabinet, his presence so woven into the fabric of their daily life that it felt strange when he wasn't there. They never discussed it formally, never sat down and decided that yes, this was happening. They were officially combining their lives. It just happened, naturally, inevitably, like water finding its level. Emma started calling Lena by her first name, then started calling her Lena Mom as a joke, then dropped the Lena part without realizing it. Noah did the same with Ethan, graduating from Ethan to Ethan Dad to just Dad over the course of a single Sunday afternoon. "Dad, can you pass the ketchup?" Everyone at the table froze. Noah looked up from his hot dog, confused by the sudden silence. "What?" he asked. "You called me Dad," Ethan said carefully. "Oh." Noah considered this. "Is that okay? Because you're like my dad now. You live here, and you make breakfast, and you read me stories, and you love my mom. That's what dads do." "It's okay with me if it's okay with your mom." They both looked at Lena, who had tears streaming down her face. "Mom, are you sad?" "No, baby." She wiped her eyes, laughing through the tears. I'm the opposite of sad. I'm so happy I don't know what to do with it. Then why are you crying? Because sometimes when you're really happy, it comes out as crying. It's complicated. Adults are weird. Yes, Lena agreed. Yes, we are. Noah went back to his hot dog, the matter apparently settled. Across the table, Emma was grinning. Does this mean Noah's my brother now? She asked. I think that's up to you and Noah, Ethan said. Noah, are you my brother? Noah thought about it with the seriousness of someone considering a major life decision. Yes, but I'm the older brother because I know more about space. You're 5, I'm 7, I'm older. Age doesn't matter, space knowledge matters. That's not how it works. That's how it works in our family. Our family. The words hung in the air, precious and fragile and exactly right. Fine, Emma conceded. You can be the older brother in space knowledge, but I'm the older sister in everything else. Deal. They shook on it, 2 children who had decided to become siblings through sheer force of will. Ethan looked at Lena across the table, across the beautiful chaos of their accidental family, and felt his heart crack open with something too big to name. I love you, he mouthed. I love you too, she mouthed back. And for one perfect moment, everything was exactly as it should be. The moment couldn't last. They all knew that, but they held on to it anyway, with both hands, refusing to let go until the very last second. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You hold on, even when it hurts. Even when you know what's coming, you hold on. The decline began so slowly that at first, no one wanted to name it. Noah started sleeping longer, an extra hour here, an afternoon nap there. Nothing that seemed alarming on its own. Children needed rest, especially sick children, especially children whose bodies were fighting battles that no one could see. Lena told herself it was normal. Ethan told himself the same thing. They both knew they were lying. Then came the morning when Noah didn't want to get out of bed. I'm tired, Mom, he said, his voice smaller than usual. Can I just stay here today? Don't you want to see Emma? She's coming over after school. Maybe later. I just want to sleep a little more. Lena sat on the edge of his bed, brushing her fingers through the peach fuzz that had started growing back on his scalp. The chemotherapy had ended months ago, not because it worked, but because it hadn't, and there was no point in making him sicker for nothing. Does anything hurt? She asked. No, just tired. Okay, baby, you rest. I'll wake you when Emma gets here. But when Emma arrived that afternoon, bursting through the door with her usual energy and a new drawing she'd made at school, Noah was still asleep. And when they finally woke him, he smiled at Emma, looked at her drawing, said all the right things, but his eyes were distant, unfocused, like he was already somewhere else. Is Noah okay? Emma asked Ethan that night, after they'd tucked both children into bed in the room they now shared. He seemed different today. He's just tired, Bug. Sick kids get tired sometimes. But he's going to be okay, right? He's going to get better? Ethan knelt down so he was eye level with his daughter. She had Sarah's eyes, that same sharp intelligence, that same ability to see through comfortable lies. He couldn't lie to her. Wouldn't. Noah's very sick, he said carefully. Sometimes people get sick in ways that doctors can't fix. We're doing everything we can to help him feel good and have fun. But I can't promise he's going to get better. I wish I could, but I can't. Emma's lower lip trembled. Is he going to die? Yes, sweetheart. Probably. We don't know when, but yes. That's not fair. No, it's not fair at all. Why does it have to be him? He's my brother. He's my best friend. Why can't it be someone else? I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't. Emma threw her arms around his neck and held on with the fierce strength of a child confronting something too big to understand. Ethan held her back, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling her small body shake with sobs she was trying to suppress. I don't want him to go, she whispered. I know, Bug. Neither do I. Can't we do something? Can't we fix him? We're doing everything we can. The doctors, the medicine, all of it. But some things can't be fixed. Some things we just have to live through. How do you live through something like this? It was the question Ethan had asked himself 1,000 times after Sarah died. The question that had no good answer, only the answer that was true. One day at a time, he said. One moment at a time. You hold on to the people you love, and you keep going, even when it hurts, even when you think you can't. That sounds hard. It is hard. It's the hardest thing in the world. But you're strong, Emma, stronger than you know. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. Dad? Yeah? Can I sleep in Noah's room tonight? I don't want him to be alone. I think he'd like that very much. Ethan watched her walk down the hall to the room where Noah was already sleeping, watched her climb into the bed beside him and curl up close. Two children sharing warmth in the darkness. Two siblings who had chosen each other, holding on while they still could. He stood in the doorway for a long time, unable to move, unable to do anything but witness. The next few weeks were a study in small goodbyes. Noah stopped being able to walk to the park. Then he stopped being able to walk to the living room. The wheelchair came first, borrowed from the hospital, and Noah pretended to like it because it had wheels, and wheels were basically like being a race car driver. But Ethan saw the way his face fell when he couldn't stand up to reach the crayons on the shelf, when he couldn't chase Emma around the apartment, when his body refused to do the simple things that 5-year-old bodies were supposed to do. The hospital bed came next. It was set up in the living room because Noah insisted he didn't want to be stuck in the bedroom, didn't want to miss anything, didn't want to be separated from his family. The living room is where we live, he said, with the iron logic of a child. I want to live there. So they rearranged everything. The couch moved against the wall. The TV was angled so Noah could see it from his bed. The crayon box was placed within arm's reach, though his drawings had become simpler now. Shaky lines, uncertain shapes, dinosaur-astronauts that looked more like blobs with legs. Emma drew with him every day. She sat beside his bed and held up the paper, describing what she was creating, asking for his input. Should the rocket be red or blue? Blue. Space is blue. Space is black. Blue is better. Trust me, I'm the space expert. Fine. Blue rocket. What about the dinosaur? Green. Dinosaurs are always green. That's a stereotype, Noah. Dinosaurs could have been any color. Then make this one purple. Purple is my second favorite color. What's your first favorite? Whatever color you're using. The days blurred together. Good hours and bad hours, moments of clarity and moments of confusion. Noah started forgetting things. What day it was, what he'd eaten for breakfast, conversations they'd had just hours before. The doctors called it neurological progression. Ethan called it watching a child disappear piece by piece. Lena handled it with a calm that terrified him. She moved through the routines with mechanical precision, medications at the right times, appointments kept, comfort measures administered with gentle efficiency. But at night, when she thought everyone was asleep, Ethan heard her crying in the bathroom. Not loud sobs, just quiet weeping that went on and on, the sound of a mother saying goodbye to her son, one tear at a time. He tried to help, tried to take over some of the burden, the nighttime care, the endless small tasks that keeping a dying child comfortable required. But Lena resisted, gently at first, then more firmly. I need to do this, she said when he offered to take the night shift. I need to be the one, while I still can. You're exhausted. I'll have plenty of time to rest later when he's... She couldn't finish the sentence. I need to be here, every moment. I can't miss any of it. He understood. He hated it, but he understood. So he found other ways to help. He made meals that no one ate, kept the apartment clean, fielded the phone calls from well-meaning friends and distant relatives who wanted updates. He took Emma to school and picked her up, maintaining some semblance of normal routine for a 7-year-old whose world was slowly collapsing. And every night, when the medications had been given and Noah had drifted into fitful sleep, Ethan sat beside the hospital bed and held Lena's hand. They didn't talk much during these vigils. There wasn't much to say. They just sat together, two people loving each other through the darkness, waiting for a dawn that would never fully come. The last good day arrived without warning. Noah woke up that morning with more energy than he'd had in weeks. His eyes were bright, his smile genuine, his voice strong and clear. I want to go outside, he announced. I want to see the sky. They bundled him in blankets, loaded him into the wheelchair, and took him to the small courtyard behind the apartment building. It was late May, and Denver was showing off. Blue sky stretching to infinity, the mountains visible in the distance, flowers blooming in the scraggly garden that the building super maintained with more hope than skill. Noah tilted his face toward the sun and closed his eyes. "This is nice," he said. "This is really nice." Emma sat on the ground beside his wheelchair, making a crown out of dandelions she'd picked from the grass. Lena stood behind Noah, her hands on his shoulders, her eyes fixed on the mountains like she was trying to memorize them. Ethan watched all of them, trying to memorize everything. The way the light fell on Lena's hair, the concentration on Emma's face as she wove the dandelion stems together, the peaceful expression on Noah's face, the first truly peaceful expression in weeks. "Dad?" Noah said without opening his eyes. Ethan's heart clenched at the word. Dad. This boy had claimed him, and he had claimed this boy, and now... "Yeah, buddy? Can you do something for me? Anything. Take care of Mom after I'm gone. She pretends to be strong, but she's not. She's going to need someone to remind her that she's allowed to be happy." Ethan felt his throat close up. "Noah, I know I'm dying. You don't have to pretend. The doctors think I don't understand, but I understand everything. I've understood for a long time." Lena made a sound, a choked gasp that she quickly suppressed. Her hands tightened on Noah's shoulders. "I'm not scared," Noah continued, still with his eyes closed, still facing the sun. "I thought I would be, but I'm not. I'm just sad that I won't get to see what happens next. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to see Emma grow up. I wanted to be at your wedding." "Our wedding?" Lena's voice was barely a whisper. "You're going to get married, right? You love each other. That's what people do when they love each other. We haven't talked about that. You should talk about it after I'm gone. Don't wait too long. Life is short." He laughed at his own words, a small, wry laugh that sounded far too old for a 5-year-old. "I know that better than anyone." Emma had stopped making her crown. She was staring at Noah with wide eyes, tears streaming down her face. "Noah, don't talk like that. You're going to be okay. You have to be okay. I'm not going to be okay, Emma, and that's okay. I know that doesn't make sense, but some things don't have to make sense to be true." He opened his eyes then, those green eyes that were so like his mother's, and looked at each of them in turn. Lena, Ethan, Emma. "I love you guys," he said simply. "I know I haven't known you very long, Ethan. And Emma, you were supposed to be just my mom's boyfriend's kid, not my sister. But you're my family, the best family I could have asked for. And I'm really glad I got to have you, even if it wasn't for very long." Nobody spoke. Nobody could. Noah tilted his face back toward the sun and smiled. "This is a good day," he said. "Can we stay out here a little longer?" "As long as you want," Ethan managed. "As long as you want." They stayed in the courtyard for 3 hours. Emma finished the dandelion crown and placed it on Noah's head, declaring him king of the Dinosastronauts. Lena told stories about Noah as a baby, the funny things he'd said, the trouble he'd gotten into, the way he'd always been too smart for his own good. Ethan contributed what he could, memories from the past few months, moments that had seemed small at the time but now felt precious beyond measure. And Noah listened and laughed and added his own commentary, and for one perfect afternoon, he was just a little boy enjoying a beautiful day with the people who loved him. When the sun started to set and the air grew cool, they wheeled him back inside. He fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by the effort of living so fully for a few hours. That night, after Emma was in bed and the apartment was quiet, Lena found Ethan sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. "He knew," she said, sinking down beside him. "This whole time he knew. Kids always know more than we think. I tried so hard to protect him, to keep him from being scared, and all along he was protecting me. That's who he is. That's who you raised him to be." She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, her hand finding his. "He wants us to get married," she said. "I heard." "What do you think about that?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment, not because he didn't know the answer, but because the answer felt too big for words. "I think," he said finally, "that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I've known that for a while. I was just waiting for the right time to say it." There's no right time. There's never a right time. Then I'll say it now. I love you, Lena Parker. I love your son. I love the family we've built. And when you're ready, whenever that is, I want to make it official. She was crying again. She seemed to always be crying these days. But this time there was something different in her tears, something that looked almost like hope. Ask me, she whispered. Not now. After. When the worst is over. Ask me then. I will. Promise? I promise. She kissed him, softly, gently, a kiss that tasted like tears and felt like forever. I love you, she said against his lips. I love you too. They held each other in the darkness, two people clinging to what they had while they still had it. In the other room, Noah slept peacefully, dreaming of stars. 3 days later, he didn't wake up. The morning started like any other. Ethan made coffee. Lena prepared Noah's medications. Emma sat at the kitchen table, working on a drawing she wanted to give Noah when he woke up. A picture of their whole family standing on the moon, surrounded by Dinos astronauts. But Noah didn't wake up. His breathing was shallow, barely there, a whisper of life that grew quieter with each passing hour. The hospice nurse came and went, explaining in gentle terms what was happening, what to expect, how long it might take. It could be hours, she said. It could be days. There's no way to know for certain. But he's not in pain. He's comfortable. That's the most important thing. Comfortable. Such a small word for such an enormous thing. They took turns sitting beside him. Lena rarely left, holding his hand, whispering things that only a mother could say to her child. Ethan stayed close, ready to take over when she needed a break, ready to catch her when she finally fell. Emma was the hardest to manage. She wanted to be there, needed to be there, but she was also 7 years old and shouldn't have to watch her brother die. I'm not leaving, she said, when Ethan suggested she go to Mrs. Delgado's apartment. He's my brother. I'm staying. Emma, you said family stays. You said that's what family does. Well, I'm staying. He couldn't argue with his own words, so Emma stayed. She sat on the floor beside Noah's bed, showing him her drawing even though his eyes were closed, describing every detail. See, this is you, and this is me, and this is Mom and Dad. We're all wearing space helmets because we're on the moon. And these are the Dinos astronauts. They're friendly ones, not the scary kind. They're our friends. They're going to show us around. No response, just the soft, rhythmic sound of Noah's breathing. And look, I put a crown on you. Because you're the king of the Dinos astronauts, remember? You'll always be the king, even when you're not here anymore. You'll be up there in space, wearing your crown, being the king of everything. The breathing grew softer. I'm going to miss you, Noah. You're the best brother anyone could ever have. Even though we only got to be family for a little while, I'm really glad I got to know you. I'm really glad you picked me to be your sister. Softer still. I love you. I love you. I love you. Lena was crying silently, her hand wrapped around Noah's, her eyes fixed on his face. It's okay, baby, she whispered. It's okay to go. We'll be all right. I promise we'll be all right. You can go. Ethan stood behind her, his hands on her shoulders, unable to speak, unable to do anything but be there. The breathing stopped. For a moment, no one moved. The silence was absolute, deafening, the loudest sound Ethan had ever heard. Then Lena let out a cry that came from somewhere deeper than grief, a primal sound of loss that echoed off the walls and shattered what was left of the world. Noah Parker was gone. He was 5 years old. He had dreamed of being an astronaut. He had loved dinosaurs and space and a girl named Emma who had chosen to be his sister. He had taught everyone around him how to love bigger, braver, better than they thought possible. And now he was gone. Lena collapsed against the bed, her body shaking with sobs that seemed to tear her apart from the inside. Emma climbed onto the bed and curled up beside Noah's still form, holding his hand, refusing to let go. Ethan stood in the middle of the room, watching his family break into pieces, and felt his own heart shatter alongside theirs. This was the moment he had dreaded since the night in the diner, the moment he had known was coming but had never been able to prepare for, the moment when everything ended and began again. The funeral was small. Noah had never had many people in his life. Just Lena, and then Ethan and Emma, and a handful of neighbors and nurses who had become like family over the years. They gathered in a cemetery on the outskirts of Denver, under a sky that was relentlessly, almost cruelly blue. Ethan had helped Lena plan everything, because she couldn't do it alone. The casket was small, too small, impossibly small, a size that should never have to exist. The headstone was simple: Noah James Parker, beloved son, brother, king of the Dinos astronauts. Emma had insisted on that last part. It has to say king of the Dinos astronauts, she'd said, with a firmness that brooked no argument. That's who he was. That's who he'll always be. So that's what it said. The service was brief. The minister spoke words that were meant to comfort, but Ethan barely heard them. He was watching Lena, watching the way she stood rigid and still, her face a mask of controlled agony. She hadn't cried since the day Noah died. Hadn't done much of anything, really. She moved through the days like a ghost, present but not present, there but not there. He was worried about her, more worried than he'd been about anything in his life. After the service, after the people had paid their respects and drifted away, Ethan found Lena standing alone at the grave. "We should go home," he said gently. "I don't have a home anymore." Lena, he was my home. Everything I did, everything I was, it was all for him. And now he's gone, and I don't know— Her voice cracked. "I don't know who I am without him." "You're still you, you're still—" "Don't." The word was sharp, cutting. "Don't tell me it's going to be okay. Don't tell me I'm strong. Don't tell me any of the things people say because they don't know what else to say." "I wasn't going to say any of those things." "Then what were you going to say?" He thought about it. Thought about all the platitudes he'd heard after Sarah died, all the well-meaning words that had felt like sandpaper on an open wound. "I was going to say that I'm here, that's all. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere, and you don't have to figure anything out right now. You just have to breathe, one breath at a time, that's all." She looked at him, really looked, for the first time in days. Her eyes were red-rimmed, hollow, ancient with grief. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "I don't know if I can survive this." "You can. You will." "How do you know?" "Because I did. When Sarah died, when I lost her and the baby, I didn't think I could survive it either, but I did. Not because I was strong, but because I had no choice. Emma needed me, and now—" He took her hands, held them tight. "Now I need you. Emma needs you. We're your family, Lena. Let us help you survive this." Something flickered in her eyes. Pain, fear, and beneath it all, something that might have been hope. But then she looked away, and the flicker was gone. "I need to be alone," she said. "Just for a while. I need to— I can't— I understand. Do you?" "I needed the same thing after Sarah. Time, space, room to fall apart without an audience." She nodded slowly. "Thank you for understanding. I'll be at home, whenever you're ready, however long it takes." She didn't respond, just turned back to the grave, to the small headstone, to the fresh earth that covered her son. Ethan walked away. It was the hardest walk of his life. The silence in the apartment was unbearable. Ethan and Emma came home from the funeral to find Lena's things exactly where she had left them, but Lena herself was gone. A note on the kitchen table, written in shaking handwriting. "I need some time. Please don't follow me. I'll be in touch." "Where did Mom go?" Emma asked, staring at the note. "She needs to be by herself for a while. Grown-ups sometimes need that when they're sad. But we're sad too. We should be sad together." "I know, Bug, but everyone handles grief differently. Mom just needs some space." "Is she coming back?" The question hung in the air, heavy with fear. "Yes," Ethan said with more certainty than he felt. "She's coming back." Days passed, then weeks. Lena texted occasionally, short messages that said nothing and everything. "I'm okay. I'm staying with a friend. I need more time." Ethan responded to each one, keeping his replies brief, giving her the space she'd asked for, even though every instinct screamed at him to go find her, to bring her home, to hold her together by sheer force of will. But he knew from experience that grief couldn't be rushed, couldn't be fixed, could only be walked through, one agonizing step at a time. So he focused on what he could control. He got Emma to school. He made sure she ate, slept, did her homework. He held her when she cried, which was often, and answered her questions about death and loss and why the world was so unfair, which was constant. "Is this what it was like when Mommy Sarah died?" she asked one night, using the name she'd created to distinguish between her biological mother and the woman she'd started calling Mom. "Similar, different. Every loss is different. But you got through it." "Yeah, eventually." "Will Lena get through it?" "I hope so. I believe so." "What if she doesn't come back? What if she decides she doesn't want to be our family anymore?" Ethan pulled his daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair. "Then we'll be sad for a while, and then we'll figure out how to keep going. That's what we do, remember? We keep going. Even when it's hard?" "Especially when it's hard." Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I miss Noah." "I know, I miss him too. I miss Mom." "Yeah, me too." "Do you think they're together, Noah and your mommy Sarah? In heaven or wherever people go?" It was the question Ethan had been avoiding his entire life. The question he still didn't have an answer to. "I don't know," he said honestly. "But I hope so. I hope wherever Noah is, he's not alone. I hope he's surrounded by people who love him, having adventures, being the king of the Dino-Sastronauts." "That's a nice thought." "Yeah, it is." They sat together in the growing darkness, father and daughter, holding on to each other because there was nothing else to hold on to. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of Ethan's heart, hope refused to die. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, 2 months after Noah's death. Ethan found it in the mailbox, addressed to Lena in handwriting he didn't recognize. It had been forwarded from her old address to his. Apparently someone had updated her mailing information without telling him. He almost threw it away. Almost decided that whatever it was, it could wait until Lana decided to come home. But something made him look more closely at the return address. Denver Children's Hospital. Oncology Department. His heart stopped. With trembling hands, he opened the envelope. Inside was a sheet of paper covered in crayon. Shaky lines, uncertain shapes, a Dino-Sastronaut that looked more like a blob with legs, and at the top, in careful 5-year-old handwriting, "For Mom after I go." Ethan sank onto the couch, the letter clutched in his hands, tears streaming down his face. Noah had written a letter to his mother before he died. A goodbye that had been sitting in some hospital drawer, waiting to be delivered. The letter was simple, short, devastating. "Dear Mom, the nurses said I should write this for you. They said it might help you feel better after I'm gone. I don't know if that's true, but I wanted to try. I know you're going to be really sad. That's okay. I would be sad too if you died, but I don't want you to be sad forever. I want you to remember all the fun we had, the Dino-Sastronauts and the space rockets, and the fort we built with Ethan and Emma. I want you to know that I'm not scared. I'm a little sad that I won't get to grow up and be an astronaut, but maybe I'll be an astronaut where I'm going. Maybe there's space wherever I end up. Please don't push Ethan away. He loves you so much. I can tell by the way he looks at you. And Emma is the best sister I ever had. She's the only sister I ever had, but she would still be the best even if I had 100 sisters. You're my favorite person in the whole world, Mom. You made everything less scary. You made me feel brave. I hope I can make you feel brave too. It's okay to be happy again. I want you to be happy. I want you to live and laugh and love and do all the things you couldn't do when you were taking care of me. I love you forever and ever and ever. You're king of the Dino-Sastronauts. Noah. P.S. Please give Ethan and Emma hugs from me. Lots of hugs. As many as they need. Ethan read the letter 3 times. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed Lena's number. She answered on the second ring. "Ethan, you need to come home. I told you I need more time. There's a letter from Noah. He wrote it before he died. The hospital just sent it. Silence on the other end. Then, so quietly he almost missed it. What does it say? It says he loves you. It says he wants you to be happy. It says... His voice broke. It says, please don't push me away. More silence, longer this time. Lena? I'm coming home. When? Now. I'm coming home now. She arrived at midnight. Ethan heard the car pull up, heard the engine cut off, heard the long pause before the door opened. He'd been sitting on the couch for hours, Noah's letter in his hands, waiting. Emma was asleep in her room. He'd debated waking her, but decided that Lena needed to read the letter first, needed to have that moment alone. The knock on the door was soft, hesitant. The knock of someone who wasn't sure they still belonged. He opened it. Lena stood in the hallway, thinner than he remembered, shadows carved deep beneath her eyes. She was wearing clothes he didn't recognize, borrowed, maybe, from whoever had taken her in these past 2 months. Her hair was longer, unwashed, pulled back in a careless ponytail. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 8 weeks. But she was here. She was standing in front of him. She had come home. "Hi," she said. "Hi." Neither of them moved. The distance between them felt vast, uncrossable. 2 months of silence and grief and all the things they hadn't said. Then Ethan held up the letter. Lena's hand trembled as she took it. She stood there in the doorway, reading by the dim hallway light, and he watched her face crumble piece by piece as Noah's words reached her across the void of death. When she finished, she was crying. Not the silent tears she'd learned to shed in private, but great racking sobs that shook her whole body. She slid down the doorframe, sank to the floor, clutched the letter to her chest like it was the last piece of her son she would ever hold. Ethan sat down beside her, right there in the hallway, at midnight, where anyone could see. He didn't touch her, wasn't sure if she wanted to be touched, but he stayed close, present, available. "He knew," she gasped between sobs. "He knew I would push you away. He knew me better than I know myself." Kids always do. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have left. I shouldn't have—" "Stop." Stop. He reached out then, cupped her face in his hands, forced her to look at him. "You don't have to apologize for grieving. You don't have to apologize for falling apart. You lost your child. There's no right way to survive that. There's only the way you survive it." "I almost didn't survive it." The words hit him like a physical blow. He understood what she was saying, what she was admitting. "But you did," he said carefully. "You're here. You came back. Because of the letter. Because Noah—" She choked on the name. "He told me to. He told me it was okay to be happy. And I realized that if I gave up, if I let the grief win, I would be breaking the last promise I made to him." "What promise?" "That I would live. That I would live for both of us." Ethan pulled her into his arms. She resisted for a fraction of a second. Instinct, self-protection, the walls she'd been rebuilding, and then she collapsed against him. Her tears soaked through his shirt. Her fingers dug into his back. She held on like he was the only solid thing in a world that kept trying to drown her. "I've got you," he murmured. "I've got you. I missed you. I missed you so much. I missed you too. I don't deserve you. After what I did, after leaving you and Emma, you deserve everything. You deserve the world. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that." She pulled back, looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. "The rest of your life? If you'll let me." "Ethan, I know. I know it's too soon. I know you need time. I know there's still so much grief to work through and so much healing to do, but I also know that I love you. I've loved you since that night in the diner, and I'm not going anywhere, ever. No matter how many times you try to push me away." A sound escaped her, half laugh, half sob. "Noah told you to say that. Noah told me to love you. The rest I figured out on my own." They sat there on the hallway floor for a long time, holding each other, letting the silence speak for them. Eventually, Lena's tears slowed. Her breathing steadied. She lifted her head from his shoulder and looked toward the apartment door. "Is Emma asleep?" Yeah, she's been asking about you every day. Does she hate me for leaving? She doesn't hate you. She was scared, confused. But she never stopped loving you. I don't know how to face her. After everything. You face her the same way you faced me, one moment at a time, one breath at a time. Lena nodded slowly. She looked at the letter again, at Noah's shaky handwriting, at the Dynas astronaut he'd drawn in the corner. He wanted us to be happy, she said. He wanted us to be a family. We already are a family. Not officially. Official doesn't matter. What matters is showing up, being there, choosing each other every single day. Is that what you want? To keep choosing me. That's what I've been doing since Valentine's Day. I don't plan on stopping. She took a shaky breath, then another. Then she reached for his hand, threaded her fingers through his. Okay, she said. Okay. Okay, what? Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to come home. Ethan stood, helped her to her feet. They walked into the apartment together, hand in hand, and the door closed behind them with a soft click. It wasn't a happy ending. Not yet. But it was a beginning. The days that followed were fragile, tentative, the careful steps of people learning to walk again after a long illness. Lena moved back in, but nothing was the same. Noah's hospital bed was gone, returned to the medical supply company. His drawings still covered the walls, but they felt different now. Not reminders of joy, but monuments to loss. Every corner of the apartment held memories that cut like glass. They rearranged the furniture, not to erase Noah, but to create space for what came next. The living room became a living room again instead of a hospital room. Lena slept in the bedroom with Ethan instead of on the couch. Emma got her own room back, though she still crept into their bed most nights, needing the reassurance of bodies nearby. Therapy started. For all of them, individual sessions and family sessions, a whole schedule of appointments that organized their weeks around the work of healing. Ethan went back to a counselor he'd seen after Sarah died. Lena found someone who specialized in bereaved parents. Emma saw a child psychologist who used play therapy to help her process emotions she didn't have words for. It helped. Slowly. Incrementally. The sharp edges of grief began to soften, not because the pain lessened, but because they learned to carry it differently. It's like Noah said, Emma announced one evening during one of their family dinners. The weight doesn't change. You just get stronger. Lena looked at her, this child who had become her daughter, this 7-year-old who had somehow absorbed wisdom beyond her years. When did Noah say that? He didn't, Dad said it, but Noah would have agreed. Ethan felt his throat tighten. How do you know? Because Noah agreed with everything Dad said. He thought you were the smartest person in the world. I thought you said Noah was the space expert. He was, but you're the life expert. That's different. Out of the mouths of babes. 3 months after Lena came home, Ethan took her to the diner. Not the 24-hour place where they'd met. That felt too heavy, too loaded with memories. But a different diner on the other side of town. Same fluorescent lights, same sticky menus, same coffee that tasted like an afterthought. But no ghosts, no history. Just the two of them, starting fresh. Why are we here? Lena asked, sliding into a booth. Because I wanted to take you out to dinner, and this is what I can afford. She laughed, a real laugh, the first one he'd heard from her in months. You're romantic. I try. The waitress came. They ordered coffee and pie because that's what you did in diners, and because it felt right. When the pie arrived, apple, not cherry, because neither of them could face cherry anymore, Ethan pushed his plate aside and reached into his jacket pocket. I have something for you? Lena's eyes narrowed. What kind of something? The kind of something I've been carrying around for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. He pulled out a small velvet box, set it on the table between them. Lena stared at it like it might explode. Ethan, I know what you're going to say. It's too soon. We're still grieving. We shouldn't make big decisions while we're still healing. I've heard all the arguments. I've made all the arguments, but here's the thing. He took a breath. Noah was right. Life is short. We don't know how much time we have. We don't know what tomorrow looks like. All we have is right now, this moment, and the choice to spend it with the people we love. Ethan, let me finish, please. He opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, silver, with a small green stone that caught the fluorescent light. This isn't expensive. It's not fancy. I bought it at a pawn shop with money I saved from working doubles. But it's real. And it's mine. And I want it to be yours. Lena was crying again. She seemed to always be crying these days, but the tears had changed. They were softer now, less desperate. I don't want to propose to you here, Ethan continued. Not in a diner. That feels wrong somehow. I want to do it properly, at Noah's grave, where he can be part of it, where we can tell him that we listened, that we're choosing life, that we're choosing each other. You want to propose at a cemetery. I want to propose where our son is, because he's still part of this family even though he's gone, and he deserves to be there when we make it official. Lena reached across the table, took the ring box from his hands, closed it. For one terrible moment, Ethan thought she was saying no. Then she said, "Tomorrow. Let's go tomorrow." "Tomorrow? I've been waiting for you to ask. I've been ready for weeks. I didn't want to push, didn't want to make you feel pressured, but..." She smiled through her tears. "Noah told me not to wait too long, and I'm tired of waiting." The next day, they drove to the cemetery. All three of them, Ethan, Lena, and Emma, who had insisted on being present because I'm part of this family too, and I want to see it happen. They brought flowers. Daisies, because Noah had loved daisies, had called them the friendliest flowers, and insisted on planting them in every pot Lena would let him have. The headstone looked smaller than Ethan remembered, more weathered. 3 months of rain and sun had softened the sharp edges of the letters, made them look like they'd always been there. Noah James Parker, beloved son, brother, king of the Dino-Sastronauts. Lena knelt beside the grave, arranged the daisies in the little holder that had been installed next to the headstone. When she stood, her cheeks were wet, but her voice was steady. "Hi, baby. We're here, all of us." Emma stepped forward, placed her hand on the headstone. "Hi, Noah. We miss you. I still draw Dino-Sastronauts every day. I'm getting really good at the rocket ships." Ethan felt his heart crack open. This family he'd built. This impossible, beautiful, broken family. "I have something to ask your mom," he said, kneeling beside the grave. "And I wanted you to be here for it, because you're the reason we found each other. You're the reason we're standing here at all." He pulled out the ring box, opened it, looked at Lena. She was radiant in the afternoon light, tear-streaked and red-eyed and exhausted and absolutely, impossibly beautiful. "Lena Parker," he said, "I met you on the worst night of your life. You were sitting in a diner alone, your heart broken by a man who couldn't see what I saw. And I saw..." His voice cracked. "I saw someone worth staying for, someone worth fighting for, someone who would change my life forever. Ethan, I can't bring Noah back. I can't undo the pain you've been through. I can't promise you that life will be easy or that nothing bad will ever happen again. But I can promise you this. I will be here, every day, for the rest of my life. I will hold your hand through the darkness. I will celebrate with you in the light. I will love you and Emma and the memory of Noah with everything I have." He held up the ring. "Will you marry me?" Lena was crying. Emma was crying. Somewhere above them, a bird was singing, oblivious to the magnitude of the moment. "Yes," Lena said. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Ethan slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, or close enough to perfectly, which was all that mattered. He stood, pulled her into his arms, kissed her with all the love he'd been storing up since that night in the diner. Emma threw her arms around both of them, making it a group hug that nearly knocked them off their feet. "We're a real family now," she announced. "Official and everything." "We've been a real family for a long time," Ethan said. "Yeah, but now it's on paper. That makes it more real." "I don't think that's how it works." "It's how it works for me." Lena laughed, really laughed. The sound echoed across the cemetery, bright and alive in a place dedicated to death. They stood there for a long time, the three of them, holding each other beside Noah's grave. The sun moved across the sky. The shadows lengthened, and when they finally turned to leave, Ethan could have sworn he felt something brush against his shoulder. A whisper, a presence. a 5-year-old voice saying goodbye. "Thank you," he murmured, "for bringing us together." The wind stirred, the daisies nodded, and Ethan Cole walked away from his son's grave with his future wife and daughter, knowing that some things last forever, even when everything else ends. The wedding was small, just family, really. Mike and some of the guys from the crew, Mrs. Delgado, who cried through the entire ceremony, a handful of friends from Lena's old life who had stuck around through everything. Emma served as both flower girl and ring bearer, insisting that she could handle both jobs and proving it with the fierce determination she brought to everything. They held it in the courtyard behind the apartment building, the same courtyard where Noah had tilted his face toward the sun and told them to take care of each other. It felt right. It felt like bringing him into the ceremony, making him part of the day. Lena wore a simple white dress she'd found at a thrift store. Ethan wore the nicest clothes he owned, a suit jacket from his wedding to Sarah that still fit, paired with jeans because some things didn't change no matter how hard you tried. The officiant was a justice of the peace Mike knew through the union. She kept the ceremony short and sweet, knowing that too many words would break them. "Marriage is a promise," she said, "a promise to stay, a promise to try, a promise to choose each other, even when choosing is hard, even when walking away would be easier." Ethan looked at Lena. She was crying. Of course she was crying. She'd been crying all day. But she was also smiling. Really smiling. The kind of smile he'd fallen in love with. "Do you, Ethan Cole, take Lena Parker to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do." "And do you, Lena Parker, take Ethan Cole to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by the state of Colorado, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Ethan kissed her, softly, tenderly, a promise in the shape of pressed lips. Emma cheered. The crew cheered. Mrs. Delgado sobbed something in Spanish that sounded like a blessing. And somewhere, Ethan was certain, a little boy in dinosaur pajamas was watching. 3 years later. The house was small, but theirs. A 2-bedroom bungalow on the outskirts of Denver bought with savings they'd scraped together over years of careful budgeting. The yard was big enough for a garden. Emma had inherited Noah's love of planting things, and the neighborhood was quiet, safe, the kind of place where kids rode bikes down the sidewalk and neighbors borrowed sugar. Ethan stood in the kitchen, making pancakes. The faces were getting better. He'd been practicing for years now, and he could do a pretty convincing elephant if he concentrated. "Dad, is the elephant ready?" Emma called from the living room. She was 10 now, all legs and opinions and stubborn determination. She still drew Dinosastronauts sometimes, though she claimed she was too old for them. "Almost. Be patient." "I've been patient for like 5 minutes." "That's not patience. That's barely waiting." "It's the same thing." Lena appeared in the kitchen doorway, a mug of coffee in her hands. She was wearing one of Ethan's old shirts, a habit she'd picked up and never dropped, and her hair was messy from sleep. "Stop arguing with the child," she said. "You always lose." "I don't lose. I strategically retreat." "That's the same as losing." "It's really not." She crossed the room, kissed him on the cheek, stole a bite of pancake batter when she thought he wasn't looking. He was always looking. "How did you sleep?" he asked. "Better. The dreams are getting easier." The dreams. The ones about Noah. They still came, even after all this time, but they were different now. Less painful, more like visits. "That's good." "Yeah." She leaned against the counter, watching him work. "I was thinking we could go to the cemetery today. It's been a while." "I'd like that." "Emma too?" "Of course Emma too. She wouldn't let us go without her." They visited Noah's grave every few months, brought flowers, sat in the grass, talked to him like he could hear them. Maybe he could. Ethan liked to think so. The headstone was more weathered now, the letters soft with age, but someone had planted daisies around the base, and they bloomed every spring without fail. King of the Dinosastronauts, forever and always. After breakfast, they piled into the truck, the same truck Ethan had been driving for a decade, held together with hope and duct tape, and drove to the cemetery. Emma brought a drawing she'd made, a family portrait, stick figures with crayon smiles, 5 people standing under a yellow sun. 5 people. Mom, Dad, Emma, Noah. And in the corner, floating above them all, a woman with dark hair and a gentle smile. "Who's that?" Lena asked, pointing to the floating figure. "That's Sarah, Dad's first wife. I figured she should be there too. She's part of our family, even though I never met her." Ethan's throat tightened. "That's Emma, that's... I know, I'm very thoughtful. You really are." They reached the grave and spread out a blanket on the grass. Emma placed her drawing against the headstone, anchoring it with a rock. Lena arranged fresh flowers, daisies, always daisies, in the holder. Ethan sat in the grass and let the silence wash over him. "Hi, buddy," he said finally. "Sorry it's been a while. Life gets busy, you know. Emma's in 4th grade now. She made the honor roll. Your mom's doing good, really good. She started painting again. Did I tell you that? She's actually pretty talented. We hung one of her paintings in the living room. It's abstract, so I have no idea what it's supposed to be, but it makes her happy." Lena laughed. "It's a sunrise. Anyone can see it's a sunrise. It's colorful, I'll give you that." "You have no artistic appreciation?" "I have plenty of artistic appreciation. I just also have questions." Emma was wandering among the nearby graves, reading headstones, looking for interesting names. She did this every time they visited, said she liked learning about all the people who were resting here, imagining what their lives had been like. Lena reached over, took Ethan's hand. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For everything. For that night in the diner, for staying when anyone else would have left. For loving my son. For loving me." She squeezed his fingers. "For making me believe that happiness was still possible." "You made yourself believe that. I just stuck around long enough for you to figure it out." "That's not true, and you know it." "Maybe, but it makes me sound humble." She laughed, leaned her head against his shoulder. They sat there in comfortable silence, watching their daughter explore, feeling the warmth of the sun on their faces. "Do you think he knows," Lena asked, "about all of this? The house? The wedding? Emma's honor roll? Do you think he can see us?" "I don't know, but I like to think so." "Me too. If he can see us, he's probably rolling his eyes at how long it took us to get here." "Probably. He always was impatient. Wonder where he got that from." "Definitely not from me." "Oh, definitely not." She swatted his arm. He caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. "I love you," he said. "I love you too. Even when you paint abstract sunrises that look like someone exploded a fruit salad?" "Even then." Emma came running back, breathless with excitement. "Dad! Mom! There's a grave over there for a guy named Bartholomew Bucksworth. Can you believe that was someone's actual name?" "That's a very distinguished name. It's ridiculous, but I love it. When I die, I want my headstone to say something cool like that. Emma the Magnificent. Or Emma, Supreme Ruler of Everything." "How about we focus on living first?" Lena suggested. "You can pick your headstone later?" "Fine, but I'm definitely putting it in my will." "You're 10. You don't have a will." "I'll make one. You can't stop me." She flopped down on the blanket between them, all lanky limbs and boundless energy. "Can we get ice cream after this?" she asked. "There's that place Noah liked, the one with the weird flavors." The one Noah liked. She said it casually, naturally, the way you mention any family member, not with grief, but with love. "I think we can manage that," Ethan said. "Can I get 2 scoops?" "Don't push your luck." 1.5? 1, with sprinkles." "Deal." They stayed at the cemetery for another hour. Lena talked to Noah, catching him up on the news of their lives. Emma read him a story she'd written for school, a story about a dino-astronaut who saved the galaxy, because some things never changed. Ethan sat and listened, feeling the weight of everything they'd been through and everything that was still to come. When it was time to leave, they each said their own goodbye. "See you soon, baby," Lena whispered, touching the headstone. Bye, Noah. I'll bring you a new drawing next time, Emma called. Ethan knelt beside the grave, placed his hand on the weathered stone. Thank you, he said quietly, for everything, for teaching me how to love again, for giving me a family I never expected, for being brave enough to let go so we could be brave enough to hold on. He stood, took one last look at the headstone. Then he turned and walked toward his wife and daughter, who were waiting for him by the truck. Ready? Lena asked. Ready. They drove to the ice cream shop, the one with the weird flavors that Noah had discovered on a random Tuesday 3 years ago. Emma got her one scoop with sprinkles. Lena got lavender honey, because she was adventurous like that. Ethan got chocolate, because some things didn't need to be complicated. They sat on a bench outside, watching the world go by, a family forged from tragedy and held together by choice. This is good, Emma announced, licking her cone. This is a really good day. Yeah, Lena agreed. It really is. Ethan didn't say anything. He just looked at his wife and daughter, at the ice cream melting in the afternoon sun, at the life they'd built from the ashes of everything they'd lost. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. There were still hard days, still moments when the grief snuck up and knocked them sideways. There would always be an empty chair at the table, a missing voice in the chorus, a hole in the shape of a 5-year-old boy who should have grown up to be an astronaut. But there was also this. Love, family, a future they'd fought for and earned and refused to let go of. Noah had been right. Life was short. Too short to waste on fear and what-ifs and the belief that happiness was something that happened to other people. Sometimes the worst moment of your life led you straight to the people who would stay forever. Sometimes love grew in the most unexpected places. Sometimes you found your family in a 24-hour diner over terrible pie on a Valentine's Day that should have been the end of everything. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you got to keep them. Ethan Cole finished his ice cream, reached for his wife's hand, and smiled. He was home.